When people told Reddit their past, their stories, explained themselves with Reddit stories, foretold the future. Not really. But foretold the future with Reddit stories. The best place by the monitor was kept for the Reddit teller. Welcome back to your cozy spot by the screenlight. Today, I have some new tales to impart with some interesting outcomes. There are often times when you might find yourself in a situation you would rather not be in. No, I don't mean awkward family gatherings. God, I hate you all. And no, I most certainly don't mean when you're shopping and that creepy cashier tries to hit on you. Not today, Carl. No, I mean situations you'd classify as a tad more serious. Today, we'll be discussing this more on Let's Not Meet. Winding down the alleyways of the dark, dark side of Let's Not Meet, there's a story here by C.A. Mommy Dear. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that, and I'm so sorry if I am. Titled, Man Tried to Grab My Baby from Me on a Flight. Short, sweet, and to the point, just how I like it. I've flown with my 1-year-old solo nearly a dozen times. Usually, people are really understanding or kind about me having a baby on my lap. And overall, he's a happy, easy baby. He's also very cute. So it's not uncommon for strangers to talk to him. Usually I don't mind. The last trip I took, I sat alone in my aisle, with a man sitting by himself directly behind me. My baby was tired and fussing. I knew he was tired, but there's not a lot I could do until after we took off. Right out of the gate, the man behind was talking to my baby, saying,
"Oh, hi, baby. Why so sad, baby? Cute little baby."
I smiled and replied that he was tired, sorry for the fuss, and thank you. After takeoff, I started to get him settled for a nap. The man behind us continued to talk to my baby, putting his hand through the seats to try to grab his feet. Multiple times, I asked him nicely to please stop, and my baby was tired and that he's distracting him. He just needs a nap. Finally, I set my baby down next to me. He stood on the floor facing the seat next to me, so that I could make a bottle. The man behind me stood up and reached over my seat to pick him up. I immediately leaned forward to pick up my baby, saying, "No, thank you. I don't need help. Please, no thank you." The man pushed me back into my seat while mumbling,
"Sweet baby, why baby cry?"
I replied very loudly, "No!" I thought that was the end of that. I was wrong. I tried to rock my baby to sleep while desperately trying not to lose my cool. As I'm rocking my baby, the man behind me reached through our seats to grab my arm, saying,
No rocking, you make him cry."
I pulled free and yelled, "Do not touch me." Again, I thought that would be the end. I started rocking my baby for the second time. This time, the man behind me reached both hands around either side of my seat to hold me in place, saying,
No rocking. Stop rocking."
I'm somewhat embarrassed that I completely lost it, clutching my baby to my chest while struggling to get free of him. It hurt. I hit the call light while screaming, "Let me go! Don't touch me! Let me go!" He was still holding me by my arms when the flight attendants came running. I could barely get anything out to the flight attendants. Everyone around us was staring. I was sobbing, and all I could get out was that I could not sit there anymore. And for the love of God, please move me. The man behind me tried to move with me, but I told the flight attendants that I did not know him, and he could not come with me. I had a good cry in my new seat, but my baby immediately went to sleep. I was moved to be next to the flight attendant seats. After calming down, I explained to the flight attendants what had happened. Multiple times, the man that had been behind me had gotten up or tried to come back to my new seat, only to be turned around by one of the flight attendants. Towards the end of the flight, one of the flight attendants told me that they'd explained everything to the pilot, and the pilot had called the FBI and the local police to escort the man off the flight. I would also be escorted off as well as everyone around us that had watched everything happen. He cheered as he was escorted off. I had to interview with the FBI and nearly missed my next flight. After my trip was done, I had to fly back going through the same airport. It was stressful and emotional, to say the least. Even knowing that he was banned from the airline and the airport, I haven't flown since. To the man that tried to grab my baby from me and then wouldn't let go of me, let's never freaking meet again. As we sneak by and evade all of these troublesome, disturbing people, this next story is titled, Florida Woman Crawled Out of My Hotel Mirror to Rob Me. This past Monday, my coworkers and I returned to our hotel from a day of work out in the field. Rebecca and I walked to our rooms, and as we stood outside of our rooms, I opened mine, and I saw someone in the bathroom. I said, "Hello?" Nobody answered. My first instinct was that it was a cleaning lady in there for some reason. And then I saw my bag with my clothes in her hands. I said to my coworker, "There's a woman in my room." Then I asked the woman, "What are you doing with my stuff?" It gets a little fuzzy here because I can't remember everything I said and what she said, but she kept mumbling about how her key still worked and how it still worked, and that's how she got in. I was in shock, and she was obviously very flustered, having been caught mid-robbery. She dropped my bags and fumbled around with her purse and a white plastic bag. By this time, my coworker was behind me watching all the insanity unfold. This woman was scrambling and walking towards the door, and I said, "What's in the bag?" thinking it was probably my stuff, and so she said,
No, it's just my things. It's just my things, I'll show you."
And so she did. I looked and I didn't see anything of mine, so since I'm obviously in shock at this time, I let her leave. I went into my room and it's been ransacked. I did a quick look around to see if anything had been taken. All of my electronics were still there. Then I went into my bathroom and saw my underwear, my bikini, and my clothes shoved into my own bags randomly. Even my passport was shoved in there. Then I looked on the counter and I saw that she got into my medication. I'm not sure what was going through my head at the moment other than I wanted it back. So I ran out the door to go find her. I ran to the laundry room downstairs and out to the sides of the hotel, and I didn't see her. I realized I was never going to find her, so my coworker and I went down to the lobby to tell them what happened, and then we called the police. We went up back to my room to wait, and I noticed that there was a metal bat on my bed, a little larger than one of the novelty wooden bats you could get at a baseball game. But there was also a flashlight on the end. She must have left it behind in a hurry. She also left behind a necklace that must have fallen out of her bag when she was scrambling with mine. I was mostly freaking out at this point. I thought that she'd gotten away with my medication that I need. The police got there and took our statements and looked around the room as well. One thing that I noticed was that there were bits of drywall in the sink. And I pointed that out to the cops, but none of us really knew where it came from. We started looking at the door and the windows to see if she pried her way in somehow, but there was nothing. So we just kind of went with the idea that she had a spare key or something, even though the hotel front desk was adamant that there's no way that that could be. The officer that came brought 2 more officers as backup because they thought the woman might still be in the vicinity. But after our statements were taken, there was nothing else that they could really do, so they left. I sat down to finally make some calls to people, and as I'm on the phone, I'm thinking about the drywall in the sink, and it just still didn't make sense to me. So I'm on the phone and looking at the drywall and the mirror on the wall right above it. And then it hit me. I got my coworker and asked her to help me pull at the mirror on the wall. We took the mirror down, and there's a hole right there, just big enough for a desperate junkie to squeeze through. I asked Brian and Rebecca if I should call the cops again to let them know that I found this, and my boss said,
There's still 2 cop cars in the parking lot.
So I went down to tell them, and the female cop kind of rolled her eyes, but the young guy said,
I'll come check it out.
They both came up, looked in the hole, and found a pillow, blankets, cigarettes, clothes, and toothbrushes. The woman had been living in the wall behind my mirror for God knows how long. She had access to me and my room at all times. I know it might be hard to picture. There was a crawl space about 2 feet wide in between the 2 rows of rooms. One of the officers called the original officer to come back and take a picture of this. She explained to him what was going on, and all I hear over the radio is,
No fucking way.
He comes back, takes pictures, and is just as mind blown as the rest of us. Obviously, we packed up and left immediately. What's even crazier is she had probably been there a long time. The last we stayed at this hotel, I would randomly smell cigarette smoke and just assume someone was smoking in the bathroom as it traveling through the vents. But no, it was a junkie, smoking just on the other side of my mirror. She had access to other rooms too. The holes in the walls were from a renovation, and the hotel hadn't properly patched them. Just covered them up with mirrors. She could have been hanging out in people's rooms when they were gone. To the junkie living in the walls of this hotel, let's not meet. Is this that schizo moment where you just gotta look at stay in a hotel and you just hear little rat footsteps and you just hear it pitter patter and you smell cigarette smoke, so you just go, they're in the goddamn walls. I don't think that they saw us. I'm looking around and thankfully, we've still avoided everyone that we don't wish to meet. However, this next story might bring a little bit more attention to ourselves. This story is from Spooky Red, titled, A Man Approached Me and My Kids in a Deserted Mall Parking Lot at 10 o'clock at night and started talking to my kids. So, this happened about 5 years ago while I was 9 months pregnant. It was Christmas. I was shopping at the mall with my then 7 and 15-year-old daughters one Saturday night in a very safe city with very low crime. There was an Applebee's connected to the mall, and we ended our shopping pretty late, and the mall stores were starting to close. So, I took my kids to the connected Applebee's for a late dinner. We finished eating at about 10 p.m. and leave out the Applebee's entrance into the practically deserted parking lot with shopping bags in tow. As we got to the car, I was in the middle of maneuvering the shopping bags on my arms to find my keys when a 50-ish-year-old, crusty-looking guy starts walking up from somewhere in the parking lot with shaggy gray-white hair and a faded flannel shirt and old jeans. I noticed him briskly approaching when he was about 40 feet away, and he said,
This is a stick-up. Give me all your money.
My blood ran cold, and I stared at him owlishly and shaking. What? What? He then said that he was just kidding, and came up and stood right next to my daughters, who were standing on the other side of the car, waiting for me to unlock the car to let them in. He then starts to make small talk with me and my girls. He's asking things like if they were being good girls for Santa and how old they were, if we got all of our Christmas shopping done, what kind of things did we get, etc. He didn't seem drunk, high, slow, or mentally challenged at all. He was very coherent and seemed of sound mind. Mind you, I was a very heavily pregnant woman, alone with my 2 daughters in a mostly deserted parking lot at 10 o'clock at night, who was being approached by a stranger who came and stood right next to my kids on the other side of the car, just shooting the breeze, talking to me and my kids with his hands in his pockets and occasionally looking over his shoulder. I didn't want to aggravate him, so I was politely conversing with him and trying to look calm and nonchalant while trying to disguise my frantic hands digging inside my giant purse for my keys. This exchange went on for a couple of minutes while he periodically kept looking over his shoulder. I was silently panicking and trying to politely keep the situation from escalating by calmly and nonchalantly talking to him while also trying in vain to find my damned keys to get us out of there. They were in there hiding good. I felt that at any moment he was going to pull out a knife or a gun or rob me, and my kids were right next to him, away from their mother on the other side of the car, and I couldn't find my freaking car keys to get my kids into the safety of the car. He kept trying to engage them in a conversation, and I could see that my oldest daughter was a little weirded out, and she kept glancing at me to gauge my assessment/reaction of the situation. Kids often tend to not recognize potential danger when they're with their parents since they see us as their protectors. And being that he was only talking and acting friendly, and I was doing my best to stay calm, they were a tad oblivious to the alarming situation we were all in. And being 9 months pregnant, and that I was no match for this full-grown man, especially if he was hiding a weapon on him. While still desperately digging for my keys, I tried to politely give him hints that the conversation was over by saying things like, "It was nice chatting with you, but I gotta get these kids to bed," and "It was nice meeting you," and telling my girls to say that it was nice to meet him too. My polite attempts to get this guy to leave wasn't working. He kept sidestepping my attempts and asking them what their favorite school subjects are and how nice young ladies they were, etc., while I was struggling with the shopping bags and digging in my giant clutter purse for my keys. My outgoing 7-year-old was completely oblivious to how not okay this situation was because he was being friendly and because of the whole "I'm with mommy, so I'm safe" child mentality. So she started to talk about what she picked out for Daddy for Christmas and started enthusiastically talking about kid stuff and asking him if he knew what Minecraft was, etc., and keeping this creep from leaving us alone by keeping him engaged in conversation. They didn't realize that I was becoming desperate to get them the hell out of here. Then I suddenly felt this sinking feeling of dread when I realized that I may have lost my keys in the mall, and that we were stuck outside with this strange man who kept looking over his shoulders and was showing no signs of walking away. And I was thinking that he was waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. All he had to do was grab one of my girls and threaten their life, knowing it would make me do whatever he wanted as long as he wouldn't hurt them. I started to feel my adrenaline start to spike, and my heart and my stomach started doing flip-flops, and I felt like at any moment shit was going down as the gravity of realizing that that there were no other people or witnesses around, and that we were totally alone with him. And at that moment, the odds were stacking against us, and that he has a chance. Then, he all of a sudden was like, "Okay."
All right. It was nice talking to you. See you later.
And he walked off in the same direction as to which he came. It wasn't until then I found my car keys and unlocked the car and told my kids to get in fast. And I got in too and locked the doors and started the car and drove the hell out of there. My 15-year-old lightheartedly and jokingly said, "All right, that was kind of weird." And I laughed. I was overwhelmed with relief. And then I was confused as to what just happened. I thought to myself, why the hell would a guy of seemingly sound mind just totally think it's acceptable to go out of his way to just approach a woman and her kids in a deserted parking lot late at night just to chit-chat? But being that nothing bad happened, I brushed it off as a joke and joked about it too. When we got home, my husband greeted us and asked us how our shopping went. And I said it went well. And my 15-year-old told him what happened to us in the parking lot and how weird it was and was kind of joking about it. I started joking too, saying how I was mentally having a panic attack while trying to look calm, and started making fun of myself by telling my husband how I was attempting to inconspicuously rummage through my purse to find my car keys. My husband went completely white, and I acknowledged his horrified look of alarm. I assured him that, albeit creepy, the guy was just talking and eventually left on his own. Now, my father-in-law is a retired sheriff deputy, and my husband went through police academy training after graduating high school. He decided to go to business school instead of becoming a cop. And being the knowledge that he gained from that, plus growing up with a cop for a dad, I found out why my husband absolutely looked horrified when I told him the details. What my husband told me rattled me to the bone. My husband told me that he was 100% sure that the reason why that guy was hanging around us chit-chatting was because he was waiting for me to unlock the car. And the reason why he was standing next to our kids was because once I unlocked the car and the kids started to get inside, he was most likely going to force himself into the car with the kids and hold a knife or gun to them to gain leverage on me, to force me to cooperate, knowing that I wouldn't abandon my kids, which would drive me to get into the car with them and do whatever he wanted me to do, which most likely would be to drive to a remote location to do God knows what. And being that he wasn't wearing a mask, suggests that his intentions were to also leave no witnesses to identify him. I then remember that he was positioned by the backseat passenger door where my 7-year-old was standing by waiting to get in. My husband told me that most likely the reason why the guy ended up leaving was because it took so long for me to find the keys, and the longer it took, the more anxious and spooked it made him. And that whole time, I was desperate to find my car keys, which through some sort of divine intervention, stayed hidden in my purse, thus saving us from potentially being abducted. To the old man wandering the streets of a abandoned parking lot in a mall by an Applebee's, let's not meet. Thank you for joining me by the monitor. And to everyone listening and enjoying this content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to hear more of these stories stemming from tragic to comedic to downright horrific. And as always, see you in the next chapter.